Hello, friends, neighbors, Mom. Thanks for listening to 15 Minutes with Fuzz, a hyper-local show focused on what's good here in Washington County, Wisconsin. I am Fuzz Martin, and I am excited for this week's episode. This week, Thursday, November 11th, 2021, is Veterans Day, and so I thought it would be appropriate to speak with two individuals, and also veterans, from our county who are constantly working to make a difference for our county's veterans. A couple of years ago, Justin and Ashley Reichert, County Executive Josh Schoemann and his wife Jodi, and a host of other individuals put together an effort to ensure that we forever honor our Washington County veterans. Justin and County Executive Schoemann joined me this week to talk about those efforts, what Veterans Day means to them, and how you can help our local veterans. County Executive Josh Schoemann and Justin Reichert joining me. Thank you both for coming in today. And as we are embarking upon November 11th, Veterans Day 2021, I wanted to get first a background on each of you and where and when both of you served. So Josh, what was your background in the military?
Yeah, so I was in the Army National Guard. I signed up before 9/11, so I was in from 2000 to 2006. I was honorably discharged in 2008 after inactive service, and I was in Iraq in 2003, right at the beginning of the war, the first week of the war, and I was there for about 7 months. We were assigned to help find weapons of mass destruction, so it was cut a little bit short.
Sure.
But yeah, that was my experience. So I left as a Sergeant E5.
How about you, Justin?
So I actually joined the days following 9/11 attacks. Something I never thought I would do. I spent 8 years in the military, was 7.5 active, and then finished the last 6 months on inactive reserve. Multiple tours overseas, Middle East. Was happy to serve in whatever fashion I could.
And you actually earned the Bronze Star?
I did. Pretty amazing to be able to have that story.
What do each of you do now? So, Josh, we kind of know what you do and as our county executive.
Yeah. So basically, Iraq kind of formed who I am, as you might imagine. And I tell people all the time that after that, I went from thinking about being a teacher to deciding to dedicate my life to the service and sacrifice, both of my Lord and my fellow comrades, some of whom never came home.
Sure.
And so that's what I'm doing now for the rest of my life, trying to earn that sacrifice back, and forever honoring our Washington County veterans was one small way for us to do that.
And how about you, Justin?
I am an environmental health and safety manager. I work in Hartford for a packaging company. Been there for about 7.5 years now, and great place to work, great people.
That's what he had dreamed of being when he was a kid, environmental health manager.
No, we were talking about that at length before we got in here. It was like environmental health or nothing. That was it.
That was it.
Those were the two choices.
No fallback plan.
Well, we're glad you made it. So about a little over 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, both of you and Jodi, your wife, Josh, and Ashley Reichert, all four of you walked across Washington County. How long was that?
Just under 40 miles.
And where did you walk from and to?
Well, we started on the southwest corner of the county, so kind of by like Low Lake State Park.
Yep.
On the southwest corner of that. Monchez, if anybody's familiar with Monchez. And then we made our way kind of on a diagonal all the way just east of Fillmore.
Okay. And you did that to promote and raise funds for your nonprofit organization that's forever honoring Washington County veterans. That was to, according to the website, so to create an endowment to perpetually honor our veterans' grave sites and erect a memorial to those who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. So let's talk about that first part of that mission. How is the organization honoring veterans' grave sites in perpetuity?
So from our point of view, I'm not a politician, never have been, never intend to be. And, my wife is in the elected world, but, with elected situations, you don't know what you're going to get. And right now, the county, Washington County, does pay for flags and markers at the gravestones for all veterans. It's something that's not guaranteed to always be there. And, I work on the Veterans Commission for Washington County as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think it started with Josh and Kurt kind of talking about it and turned into, it's something that as veterans, that's something you never want to lose. You don't want to have that taken away. And as we move on, we're just going to have more and more of those markers and flags that need to be out there. So for me, it was taking it out of the hands of the politicians or anyone that could change their mind at some point about giving this money to the veterans organization. And, this was the best way to do it.
Just make sure it doesn't become a line item in a budget or something someday, right?
Right.
Yeah, and stays away from being something political. I think
Right.
if Kurt was sitting here, he'd tell you that there's always a concern that someday, the American flag on a gravestone is going to be offensive or something that government shouldn't touch. And this kind of takes it out of the hands of not just politicians, but politics.
Right.
And I think that was something that was important to both of us, and certainly to Kurt and the entire team that helped make this happen, because it really took a team to make it all possible. But it was important to us to make sure that we could keep that tradition going and do it perpetually.
Now, each year, the funds are there to help with flags and such for the gravesites. Are there people actively then putting those out? Is that how that works?
Yeah, exactly. So we're working right now with the West Bend Community Foundation to get that endowment permanently set up, and those dollars flowing to that cause, and to some of the work that Justin does on the Veteran Service Commission. But then also we have all kinds of groups that actually help put those flags in place right around Memorial Day, and then they start actually taking them down right about now, right before right around Veterans Day, I should say.
Okay, I've got it. And then the other half of this mission then was helping to raise funds for a Veterans Memorial, which happens to be at the 9/11 Memorial Site in Kewaskum, and raised, I believe it was $70,000 for that.
Yeah. So we actually started off talking about having a memorial of some sort for Iraq and Afghanistan, but maybe more specifically the global war on terror.
Mm-hmm.
And we started by talking to the veterans groups, American Legions and Veterans of Foreign Wars, Marine League, etc. And basically they all said to us, talk to the 9/11 Memorial because they got stuff going on.
Sure.
And so that's kind of how we landed there. And, one thing led to another. And ultimately, obviously, that beautiful facility was constructed. And we're proud to be part of it.
Yeah, well, we're proud or thankful, I guess, to have you be a part of that. And that section of the memorial, the whole memorial is beautiful, and I'm biased, but that section is very well done. It's very classy, represents all 5 branches of the military, and does so in a very beautiful and appropriate way.
Agreed. And I think what I like best about it is it's kind of simple and undertoned, and it's not real in your face, but you can sit there and reflect, but you can also kind of take in the sights, and it's really profound.
Yeah. Well, again, we appreciate your support, and your support helped both with this and County Executive Schoemann. Some of your other donation that you made to the memorial helped get us over that line and get the beam up in the air and get the momentum rolling. So we really appreciate that. And Justin, you've been helping now on the board at the memorial, and we obviously appreciate all your efforts as well.
Yeah, thank you. I was honored to be asked.
Veterans Day is this Thursday. What does that mean to you? So we'll start with you, Justin. We all knew Veterans Day as a kid and growing up, and then pre you joining the military. Now that you are a veteran, how's that changed for you and your mindset of what Veterans Day is between then and now?
Sure. So I think a lot of it is just the experiences of being there. You can directly relate to what veterans are and who veterans are. Growing up, my grandfather and I were always very close, and he was a veteran of Korea.
Mm-hmm.
So, we did things, we recognized it, but it wasn't as big of a thing. I didn't understand it or truly appreciate it as much as I did. Then after multiple deployments and, like Josh said, people that didn't come back, the people that did, you just had a different mindset then. Obviously Memorial Day is for, our fallen comrades that didn't make it, But then you look at all the people that did make it back, whether injured, not injured or anything like that, and you can appreciate that more. Going to Veterans Day functions or ceremonies, looking around at the people, and I mean, you're surrounded by heroes. You really are. The veterans that served in any service, any branch at any time are truly heroes for what they've done.
How about you, Josh?
Yeah, so I would agree that from growing up to today, it's changed. I think the thing that's changed the most for me is when I was growing up, you almost idolize World War II veterans in kind of this like caricature that you think of them as almost superheroes. At least I did when I was a kid. And I think what's changed for me being a veteran is, people used to say to me all the time when I got home, especially early on, like, man, you've changed. And I always wanted to say, yeah, no kidding.
Right.
So everybody comes home with some baggage, and sometimes that baggage is ugly and nasty and really hard to deal with. And sometimes it's just heavy. It's just heavy.
Right.
And so I think Veterans Day is one of those days where you can pause and just reflect and appreciate no matter what type of luggage they're carrying, they carried it for us, and just have an appreciation for that. And the farther along we get in society where you've got all these folks, less than 1% of the population who served, and that number gets fewer and fewer as the World War II generation in particular, unfortunately, passes on. It's just this smaller and smaller group of people who've carried so much of the load. I think it's important for the nation as a whole to stop and acknowledge that and respect that. And, that's why we did it. We don't want everybody to have to bear that burden. And so at least take a minute and acknowledge it and thank those folks. And that's what it means to me now.
Kind of going off on that piece, what can the community do besides Veterans Day and attending Veterans Day events and that? What can the community do, our community do, and specifically to get behind and support post 9/11 vets?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff they can do. We've got a lot of really cool resources, some stuff that's kind of a one-time shot and other things that are more longer term. Helping organizations like Team Red, White, and Blue or Team Rubicon, which are really kind of national and some cases international, you can have a humongous impact. But I think identifying a vet it doesn't even have to be a family member, but somebody and just having a conversation. So many of the vets I know, one of the things that we did on our walk was, and most people probably don't realize this, is Justin and I carried 22 pounds out of recognizing the 22 veterans a day that commit suicide. And that number fluctuates, but I mean, that's one of those examples of carrying that luggage that sometimes it just gets overwhelming. And so simply finding somebody who or are associated with and having a conversation with them and befriending them, I talk all the time about loving your neighbor. It's really that simple. Put yourself in their shoes and have a conversation, and that's it. But there's lots of ways. Certainly getting active with the Veteran Service Commission or, helping out the American Legion, as simple as buying a brat at the VFW. It's a million little things like that make all the difference in the world.
And how about you, Justin? Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would just caveat and, add to the fact that it doesn't have to be a huge thing, a small gesture. It is awkward at times if someone thanks you for your service. But at the same time, for all the people around you, it means that much more. If I'm walking with my family and someone thanks me for my service, that shows a lot to my children. And, that's what we're doing it. That's why we deployed. That's why we did what we did for the future. And I think it says a lot that way. Like Josh said, there's a lot of people that struggle, whether it's physically or mentally. And just identifying that, talking to people, and just asking people if they need anything.
With the Forever Honoring Our Washington County Veterans, what do you guys see for the future of that?
Yeah, so Justin's going to walk 400 miles in the next few weeks.
I see you're currently wearing slides. Are you gonna?
This is what I wore for the 40 miles.
That's good. That's good. We'll get you some comfy socks.
Right. No, I think the organization as a whole, we commonly hear about Josh and Jodi and Ashley and I, but there were 10 people involved when we really did it. And, they put in a lot of hours too. Kurt obviously put in a lot of hours and continued to well after the event. But I think Josh and I have talked about it before. What can we do and who can we help?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily have to be the same position or the same thing. We do smaller things now. We did a shooting clays this year. So that's something Kurt put through. Looking at doing that again next year, and just getting that to a place where these flags, these markers, and then maybe something else down the road can be taken care of, can be an out for veterans in any kind of situation.
So the other thing that the county is going to do, and it's really affiliated and comes from the Forever Honoring concept, is we've reached out to the 9/11 Memorial Group, had conversations preliminarily with the police chiefs and fire chiefs about creating another endowment, this time for the purpose of scholarship funds for fire, police, EMS, and military family members and others. And so, at least beginning that conversation in public and seeing, is that something we can get up and running, and is Forever Honoring and the type of organization that can help fill out what that endowment needs to look like.
Sure.
Very much a possibility. So we're excited to get that conversation going, but it's always going to be about earning the service and sacrifice of our fellow veterans. That's always where we want to focus. And so it's to be determined what happens next, but it's always going to be that vision and that focus.
Right. Well, I don't want to say thank you for your service in a cliche manner, especially after that setup,
Right.
Justin. But I do want to say, from the perspective of a constituent or someone who, a resident of Washington County, thank you again for not only for your service, but thanks for that, but for putting this together and helping to keep that perpetually honoring those who served into the future here in Washington County. And also, again, for all of your support with the memorial and those future things that come. You guys obviously care about this very much, and not only care about it, but put your efforts and time behind it. And that's we're grateful for that, and it's great to have you both here. So
thank you for the thank you, and to all the vets out there who are listening. Hopefully, there's lots of you. Just know that we got your back, and this community is fantastic. The dollars that you talked about that we raised, I think eventually we got upwards of $150,000 total for both of the causes that you talked about. I think that's just a good representation of, if you need help, pick up the phone, reach out to a friend. Like, the help is here in Washington County. People really care. They truly do. Forever Honoring our Washington County veterans is one small example of how.
Great. Thank you both again.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thanks again to both Josh and Justin for joining me this week, and of course for all they do. If you ever have an idea for a person, place, or thing that I should showcase on 15 Minutes with Fuzz, please drop me a line. If you go to my website, 15withfuzz.com, so there's no minutes in the title, just 15withfuzz.com, click on the contact page or send an email to 15withfuzz@gmail.com. If you like the show, share it with a friend. And if you don't, you keep that to yourself. We'll talk to you next Monday right here on 15 Minutes with Fuzz.